I'm Denise Dillenbeck. I'm the concertmaster of the Yakima Symphony, and I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about that. A lot of you have heard me talk about the duties of being concertmaster quite a bit before, so I thought I'd summarize those, but then change things up a little bit by just answering some questions. So I put some questions out to all my friends on social media, asking them to ask me whatever questions they had about being concertmaster. So we'll do those in a minute. The concertmaster is the person who walks on stage right before the conductor at the beginning of a concert. And I get to turn and bow and acknowledge the applause of the audience. And that's a way of welcoming all of you on behalf of the orchestra. And then I look to the principal oboist, who then gives the tuning note, the A, that the orchestra tunes to. In rehearsals, I get to try to interpret what the conductor is asking the orchestra to do and show that every way that I can to the rest of the orchestra. I demonstrate in how I use my instrument and my bow, how I move my body, what kinds of phrasing and dynamics, and in general, the kind of sound that I feel like is what the conductor wants from us. So it's really important that I'm in step with the conductor and have a good relationship with that person. I also get to put some creativity into preparation before that. We do bowings ahead of our first rehearsal, so I get to mark into the parts whether the violins play off the string or legato, long, smooth bow strokes, and every way that we use our bows. I mark that into the part, and then that gets disseminated throughout the sections, and all the string players match that to the extent that works for them. The concertmaster also gets to sit on audition panels and listen to new players come who want to either audition for our sublist or to land an actual spot with the orchestra. And I get to have some input on the process as that moves along, which is really gratifying and wonderful to see people coming and doing their best under those circumstances. Probably the most fun thing I get to do is to play some of the great concertmaster solo literature that the composers through the years have written. There's a kind of color when there's a solo violin wedded into the overall sound in an orchestra piece that is really beautiful and satisfying. And it's been really fun with Yakima Symphony to play some of the very greatest masterpieces like Strauss's Heldenleben, Brahms' First Symphony. These solos are ones that violinists study all our lives and that are near and dear to our hearts, so it's really satisfying to get to play that. One of the questions asked was, name some of the best and worst concertmasters in history. And while I wasn't there to see the actual leadership of folks down through the ages, there are some stories that have gotten passed down. And one, it doesn't qualify for making him the worst concertmaster in history, perhaps the clumsiest or unluckiest. Jean-Baptiste Lully, who lived centuries ago, back when the concertmaster not only led the orchestra from playing the violin, but also conducted a bit. At that point, the conducting baton was a big cane that he would kind of pound on the ground to show the beat when he needed to. And Lully accidentally stabbed himself in the foot with it, consequently died of gangrene. So that is a cautionary tale. Unfortunately, concertmasters don't have to do that anymore. Lully also wrote some really beautiful music that we all still get to play. So he has a positive legacy as well. Someone asked what the best food is to have after a successful concert at the Yakima Symphony. And I definitely love getting some house-made guacamole over at the Koichi Ice House. Another great question comes from a young student asking about advice for young people who are aspiring to have a career in leadership as concertmasters. And I would definitely say that listening is super important, not only on the musical end to really know the score and know what you're hearing and be able to make decisions quickly based on that, but listening and having empathy and being able to understand what is happening on an interpersonal level in rehearsals. All leadership positions are positions of service, and setting out into this field with the idea of understanding, empathizing with, and serving your community to the very best of your abilities is so crucial to being able to do this job well. Oh, and also practice excerpts, practice them every day, practice concertmaster solos, practice. Somebody asked, what are some of the craziest and or most fun things that I've gotten to see from the concertmaster chair during concerts? And I would say the most jarring and crazy ones have to do with medical emergencies. And there have been a few of those over the course of my career in music, seeing somebody collapse in the audience or having an emergency team come in. Those are sobering moments. I've also seen that on stage among the musicians during concerts, and that's always, of course, really shocking and concerning. There's also moments of real fun where you get to connect with a soloist who is there to play and maybe exchange a word back and forth as you shake hands, or exchange a look with your conductor when something crazy happens. When a soloist is really getting into it or something. Those are some special, unexpected moments. A fun question came from one of my nieces about how to balance practicing for your work obligations versus practicing for your own enjoyment and personal growth. And that is a really good question. I think it's a tough balance to manage, and it really depends on what is required of us from our schedule as working musicians. I have found, though, that when I go full bore at my work responsibilities without taking time out to feed what I love and just kind of explore my curiosity in music, that I, after a while, get burned out. So I definitely think it's important to corral a little bit of time and use that at least every week towards exploring new things and just playing the music that gives me pleasure for the sake of that. Another former student of mine asked what my favorite part of being concertmaster is, and I'd have to say it feels so good to facilitate and be able to have some creative input and control in what is happening, and feel like I can use that in a way to hopefully make other people's lives easier and more streamlined and enjoyable too. It's really fun to be able to communicate with the audience and with each other and try to make that pleasurable and efficient and connecting. Someone asked, what are some moments that I'm most proud of in my concertmaster career? And one that stands out to me has to do with working with Maestro Lawrence Golan, but not at the Yakima Symphony. He and I were both working with the Bavarian Philharmonic in Germany. And this is a group that had players from countries all around the world in it. Only a couple Germans. There were people from Asia, from Russia, from South America, and almost no one spoke English as a first language other than us, maybe a couple other people. So we were trying to get through the opening rehearsals of this group and figure out how to bring all these people together and make a cohesive sound. And I feel like very proud that we were able to knit all these very diverse voices into one whole by the end of that rehearsal process and give a really beautiful concert. And it was really fun to figure out how to learn to communicate non-verbally. That makes me think of another favorite thing about being concertmaster, which is traveling as a working musician. There's something so fulfilling about seeing different parts of the world and experiencing new places and people while bringing music to those places and feeling well used and industrious and artistic in the process of it all. That's probably one of my favorite things about being alive. I talked about one of the concertmasters who is renowned throughout history because of the unfortunate way that he died, but I didn't actually describe any of the famous celebrated concertmasters on the positive end, and there have been so many, it's hard to choose. Some of the ones that I grew up cherishing recordings of have just recently retired, like Georgia Flizanis from the Minnesota Orchestra, who was one of the first women concertmasters that I got to see in action, and whose representing of that really changed my life. Glenn Dictorow at the New York Philharmonic just laid down an amazing trove of tradition and beautiful artistry and bowings, and was an incredible presence in the orchestra world for his huge career. And there's so many others. A friend jokingly asked me the question, what my funniest encounter with the paparazzi was. Of course, that's not so much a thing in my line of work, but I will say that it's really sweet and touching to have interactions with concert goers outside of the concert. When people have been at a concert that I've just played and say we meet up at the gas pump, gassing our cars before going home or something like that. They're really sweet, sweet moments of exchange after pouring your heart out in music on stage and then getting to actually connect with people who were there. I really cherish those moments. Another thing that being concertmaster in Yakima has allowed me to do has been to contribute to the forte columns for the Yakima Herald. And a friend asked what I would do if I weren't a concertmaster or violinist, and I sure would say I can imagine being a writer. I love doing that very much. And that leads to probably the last question of the day, which is what would I want my legacy to be? What would I want to be remembered for in my Yakima time? And I hope that my time in Yakima will be remembered for the great music that we all played and experienced together, and I hope to have contributed to some heartfelt experiences and some widening of empathy around the experience of music and community together. I feel very lucky and privileged to be part of this orchestra and to be a part of this community, and thankful to have made it through the years we've had together so far. So thank you all for listening today and every concert that you come to. See you soon.